Dude, this is crazy. Okay, dude, I love technology. Technology's awesome. It took like an hour, but we're here. All right. I don't know how formally this discussion needs to be. I've never done like a two-person thing like this before, but I'm excited to talk about this movie with you. And what is that movie, Jacob?
The Snyder cut of Justice League.
Amen, brother. All right, so let's just open the gates. What did you think? I want to hear your thoughts.
First and foremost, I'd like to say that I absolutely enjoyed my 4 hours with this movie. Um, I had the setup really well. I had a couch and my ottoman, good props. I made movie nachos. We had popcorn. We got the bottled Coca Colas.
Oh, so the
Uh,
real sugar in it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were prepped and ready for the 4 hours. We took one little intermission, like 10 minutes to stretch our legs,
Dude,
and then
okay.
hop back into it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
But
man. Did you? I was gonna ask if you went all the way through, but yeah.
oh yeah, all the way through, 10-minute break, and yeah, I loved it. I had a lot of fun, and I thought it was a huge improvement.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get all the non-spoiler stuff out of the way, and I guess we'll have to disclose, since if anyone watches this, the three people that follow me, or wherever we post this, non-spoilers. So this first part will be just talking about kind of the surface level details of things about the movie that aren't going to spoil anything new, because this is an entirely new movie, like top to bottom. Like, I thought it would just be some additional stuff, maybe some scenes to add context to certain things, but it revamped pretty much this entire story and the characters. But before any of that, how did you feel about just kind of the runtime? Did you feel like that was kind of dragging the movie down a little bit, or do you think it's better that it's longer?
I was at first I was just like, oh, this is just gonna be, you know, 4 hours of Zack Snyder doing Zack Snyder shit, and like him really just taking it and owning it, and just like I don't know, I wasn't expecting this, and so I think that the way that I think from like a screenwriting perspective, the way that it was put together was really structurally sound to where it made the 4 hours easy, like much easier than it could have been. Like if it was just like the Whedon cut plus extra Snyder stuff, it wouldn't have been a fun 4 hours. But with how they set it up and how they really dived in and stuck to, I guess, his true vision of what he originally envisioned the script to be, made the 4 hours much easier.
Right. Yeah, and in I think it's what, six parts that they break this movie up into, and then an epilogue. Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, did you like that structure? How it kind of paused, and did you wish that it was more of like a mini series where you could watch it as an episode, or do you like that it was just all the way through? Because that was something for me that kind of helped know when to like take a break.
Mhm.
I didn't want to miss any beats, and I think it was good that they did that. But I've heard mixed things from other people, like online, saying they just wish it was episodic and they actually did episodes instead of one 4 hour thing.
Yeah. No, I really loved it. It reminded me of like I don't know, there's like a lot of old westerns that would set up parts of the story like that. It'd be like it would set up like the Lone Ranger, and then it would get like 40 minutes in and it would say the Lost Girl, and it would like set up this tone for the next part. And that's what it felt like to me. It's like, ooh,
Right.
yeah, yeah, we're getting into a different part of it. We're getting into like a new chapter. There's more happening here than just like your standard stuff.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I really liked how they set up the chapters. Um, I felt like that was just part of it that made it an easy viewing experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it.
So in terms of like just overall improvements, and I guess without spoiling anything, but let's just talk about the characters in general. Like, who do you think improved the most?
So I think there's two different parts of this. I think from a movie perspective, like who had the most changed impact on the movie, I think Cyborg did.
Okay.
Um, in terms of actual character development, I think we got more from Batman than anyone else, which is probably surprising because it felt like he already had a grounding in this world with Batman v Superman. But there was a real change, one just with his initial character, but also with I think how he viewed himself. Uh,
Right.
that really changed. That really I thought was really well done.
Right. Yeah, he's more based on faith and like the actions of what happened in Batman v Superman. You can see it actually has a real impact on him, and you understand why he's kind of more motivated to, I guess no spoilers at all, because in the end they are trying to bring back Superman. That's not really a big deal. You know that going in. But that was the thing that I really liked, is that he talks with Alfred so much more. Like we get more scenes that Zach includes where you actually get that relationship between them that's nurtured, and it's not just Alfred, making weird jokes. Like I completely, after watching this movie, I blocked out the entirety of the Whedon cut. And between you and me, and well, I guess everyone else who's watching this, but I actually kind of liked the Whedon cut when it came out. I was like, this isn't as bad as everyone's saying it is. It's not good, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But that's not how you should judge a movie.
Yeah.
Like how bad it isn't. So yeah, this was a huge improvement in that department, and I completely agree. I actually didn't even consider Batman until you just said it now, but now that you mention it, yeah, that relationship in general was way improved.
Yeah, I agree, and just seeing some more interaction with, you know, Diana and Alfred, like you said, the Alfred interactions were they were so good,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it really makes you just notice how much Joss Whedon didn't get it. Like he didn't get it when he was going in and he was looking at all this and he was looking at the script and all the scenes and like how he wanted to change things. It's like he didn't get it.
Yeah.
And people have different artistic viewpoints, and I mean, he made something I think that was really really great.
Mm-hmm.
And just to think that we might have never seen that is wild.
And that's another question I want to lead up on. And I mean, what do you think is the future for this? And I think that we'll go into those details more later on. It's so hard not to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
Like, dude, let's talk about that thing.
Yeah.
Overall, it is open-ended. Zach mentioned it prior to this movie being released that, this is kind of a cul-de-sac where it's, this is the final thing. But he leaves it open-ended, which I'm just thinking, this is him kind of whipping out his balls and saying, hey, like, I am opening the doors for an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to say the doors are closed, but if you happen to want to break through and offer me some money and say sorry for that atrocious cut of my movie, then maybe we could do something. Because I think this is going to open up the doors for fans to be like, okay, we want to see more. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, now there's the whole Twitter thing that's restore the Snyderverse that
Really?
people are throwing out. Yeah, people are already asking for it. They're like, I want more.
Oh my god.
This was great. And so now there's restore the Snyderverse
Jeez.
that's coming through with it. But I don't think these will be theatrical movie releases if they make more.
Yeah.
I think because really this was only possible because of HBO Max.
Right.
They're like, we want to bring people into the service. People are going nuts for this. Let's have people subscribe so that they can see this thing that they want.
Yeah.
So I think Warner Brothers is really just like going to be very hands off with it, and they're going to be like, HBO Max, if you want to do something, that's fine. You can do it. We'll make our own Superman. We'll make our own Batman. We'll focus on Elseworld stuff.
Yeah.
But if you really want to do this, feel free to do it. And so I think it'll be down to HBO Max making that decision. How many people watch this? How many people want to continue watching it? How many people actually sat through 4 hours of this movie and then came out and said, "Yeah, I had fun." And yeah, and so it'll be on them. But it could they could bring them all back and make the other two movies, and it'll be great. Or they can make an animated movie to kind of go off of it and wrap it up. They could just like make a deal with DC and just make these comic books and make it a run that you can like the Snyderverse run. Really wrap up the series. So yeah, I think there's a few different ways they can go through it, but I don't think that they will be theatrical releases.
Yeah. Do you think they could possibly just make it their home? Like HBO Max could be kind of what Disney Plus is to, the extended Marvel shows and things like that, kind of embellishing on characters and maybe not doing TV shows, but doing movies that are strictly released on that service.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're already kind of doing it, They took DC Universe and just integrated them in. So we've got a couple seasons of Titans on there that you can see. Season 3 coming soon. They got Doom Patrol. They had Stargirl that was a side-by-side, so it's like it was streaming, but it was also releasing on CW. Yeah. All the CWs are coming in. And with the CW really establishing the multiverse within their shows, just like really opens up what they can do. And so, yeah, I think we're going to see that. That's going to be the competitor to Disney Plus. Yeah. So we'll have the Marvel stuff that happens, the stuff that goes to theaters, the stuff that goes straight to Disney Plus, and then HBO Max will have something similar where we'll have stuff that goes straight to HBO Max, stuff that goes to theaters. But the only difference is that Marvel's focusing right now on their timeline and their MCU that they've made, where HBO Warner Brothers, they're not going to do that. They're just going to make stories where they want to make stories, and if it fits somewhere, that's great. And if not, whatever. They're going to make it regardless.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And then we've got Justice League Dark coming on HBO Max.
Is that still happening? Remember when
Dude, that's still happening. And yeah,
is he still doing
I think it's happening even more now because they've got Zatanna being written right now.
What?
For a movie. So that's being written for a movie. They've got Swamp Thing that they can pull from if they like. Honestly, what a great sequel to Swamp Thing, because people love that show. They didn't give it the light of day that it needed. And honestly, what a way to keep Wonder Woman involved, but to have her really dive into Justice League Dark, because I think with her history and diving into magic and lore would fit in perfectly with Justice League Dark, and like pulling them, being the Batman that pulls in all of those characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see any downside to them just making more stuff, whether it's DCEU or not, Snyderverse or whatever. Like, they're gonna make money regardless.
Yeah. I think going back to kind of the details of the movie that aren't spoilery, but how did you feel about the 4:3 ratio? And when you mentioned Zack's style, I think you know what I'm going to say. How did you feel about the slow-mo of the entire movie? So, yeah, I want to hear what
about. So, at first, the 4:3 was awkward. Yeah. It took me time to adjust. Luckily, I had 4 hours to adjust. But I stopped noticing it after the first couple of parts. I would remind myself, oh yeah, this is in 4:3 aspect ratio. Yeah. Which I felt like I would miss out on a lot from the screen from doing that, but I feel like I got everything I needed from those shots, which was very interesting. In terms of slow-mo, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think they really played Flash's abilities well, especially diving into slow-mo a lot. But even parts where Flash wasn't around that they dove into slow-mo, it didn't feel like it prolonged any of the scenes too much. It felt like he did it and it served a purpose, and it felt natural to do it for his vision, for like what he was doing. Not to, I don't want to get into spoilers yet, but like there was a scene where, Wonder Woman did a thing, and like we're just like waiting on this thing to like climax and a thing to happen, and then just the slow mo, just like it pulled you in, and then right when it gets you back into it, you feel that. And so I don't know. I think he did it pretty well.
I will say, kind of writing off that thought, is that I did like certain characters making use of not the CG, of the slow mo, because I felt like with the Flash, it's appropriate. You kind of have to do that, and I think that was great. But then when I thought about the whole movie, and then my friend was saying this while we were watching, and he's like, you know, if we just played this at normal speed, the movie would probably be like 2.5 hours. And I was like, now I want to like download this movie and then make my own cut where it's just, I want to see what the actual speed and like runtime would be if it was condensed down. But like you said, I think the slow-mo actually did look good. It did make me sort of miss Zack style, because I remember watching 300 and I like fell in love with just like the way that movie looked. I won't say he's the most I don't know 100% Rotten Tomatoes director. He's not someone that everyone likes, right? But
Right.
I've always liked his style. I did say during the movie that, man, I wish some of the scenes weren't in slow-mo. I wish they kind of just went, you know, at normal speed, but overall it didn't take me out or anything like that. It's only when you're with other people who are just like, man, this is going on pretty long.
Right.
But like otherwise, I liked it. And the 4:3, I like did some research on it, and it turns out, you know, it was because he shot the whole thing in IMAX. So I was worried that he was cropping stuff out, but it was actually showing more of what he actually shot. So that was more of a relief than anything. And it made me just wish I could watch it in IMAX the way it was intended. But yeah, so those things didn't bother me, but I had to ask because something. Yeah,
Can you imagine like theaters coming back after COVID and being like, hey, we have this IMAX theater, but like no one's releasing movies anymore. But what if we like release the Snyder cut in this IMAX movie, 4 hours long, you know?
It's good. It'll be like what Tenet was trying to be, you know, that
Right.
movie that brings people back. I think people would actually have an interest. I don't even, like, to be honest, I don't know of anyone that I know, like, close, that has gone to a movie physically. Like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, people aren't slowly going back. It's not.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought about renting one for like Ryan the Last Dragon, but it's like $250 to like rent out the theater, and it's like,
For Ryan,
do I miss the theaters that much?
Do you even know if it's a good movie though? Like, you would have to.
No, I've avoided all spoilers because Disney said that it's coming like to digital sooner, like June. Like you can buy it digitally in June. And I'm just like, I'm not going to pay premiere
Yeah.
if it's just like right around the corner where it's going to release. So I don't think it's doing well, but you know, with that being said, theaters are going to need to really capitalize on certain opportunities when it's acceptable to kind of go back. And I think the Snyder Cut would be a really fun opportunity to take advantage of.
I think that's the movie that if you were, yeah, it's built for that kind of experience, I think. Especially the way that it's kind of split up in parts and you could have an intermission, you know, it kind of, if people feel like it's a slog to get through, kind of like Hateful Eight. Like, like,
Yeah.
I love that they had an intermission in that movie. So if they did bring this into theaters, it would be really cool, and I think it fits. I just don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, just because, yeah, I don't know about anyone who's kind of in a rush.
No.
I miss it, but I'm not in a rush to go back. So yeah, yeah. Overall, the movie, the way it's styled, the way that it's shot, and the way that it kind of looks. I heard that he originally wanted to do black and white, and I think that would have gone too far. So I think it was fine just as is. Otherwise, it would go a little bit too pretentious.
Yeah.
But still, I had a really good time watching this movie. And what other things should we talk about that aren't spoilery that, you know, we can kind of have a conversation about? Because all the stuff I want to talk about is like, whoa, way different from the original. So let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just really, really good to like call out how, with all the allegations that came out with Whedon and how he was treating people on set. Like, I feel like this is just so good for everyone.
Yeah.
Like Ray Fisher, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot. Like, I know there was one part that they took out of Whedon's Justice League that I'm just like so appreciative of. That's where Flash, like when they're in the big fight in the sewers,
Yeah.
and like Flash like catches her or something and then falls on her, and his like head is like in her breasts, and it's
Yeah.
like, and he gets up and he's like, I'm so sorry. It felt so out of place and out of character for those two, and I don't know, just the fact that Whedon went in and put that in there, like he added time and put that in there, that degraded those characters in such a way that just took so much out of it. And I don't know, I'm really glad that they also got to see what they were originally working towards put on the screen.
I think this is the first time where I've been happy that a movie has a rabid fan base. Like, this is the first time I've been like, I'm glad that people pushed this so hard, because I was literally on the opposite end of this. I was like kind of against it when the talks were first starting, because I was just like, Batman v Superman is not good, Justice League is not savable, I don't believe Snyder could exist. And then talks started coming, and then he started releasing more images on like Vero or something like that. I was like, oh my god, this thing's actually real. So when things started like piling up, I was like, all right, I'm down, but I'm not gonna like build up any anticipation, because I just want to be surprised. And this like really surprised me by how much it changed everything. And talking about that scene that you just mentioned, the Gal Gadot scene in The Flash, I don't even think she was in that scene. I mean, she was the character, but I think the double, right?
Right. It was a double. Like, they went so far to add that in. Like, she didn't want to do it. And they're like, well, okay, we'll just get someone else to do it. And it's like, what?
Yeah. What?
Oh man. Yeah. I don't know. Joss is kind of dead to me right now. He's got a lot to explain and a lot to apologize for. Stuff with Buffy starting to come out too, which is really, really upsetting because it's my favorite show.
Dude.
And yeah. So cancel Joss, praise Zack Snyder, and everything else that the rabid fan base is saying. I'm all for right now.
Dude, it hurts me because Firefly is just one of my favorite shows. It's such a good show, and I'm just like, I was riding for Joss like all the way up to Avengers, and then Ultron came out, and I was like, man, he's just having a bad year. And now this stuff's coming out, I'm like, oh, he's having a bad decade. Like, this is not good. So yeah, all those controversies aside, looking at the Joss Whedon cut, I can say there are things I like about it. I did like it at the time, but then when you watch this, it's like, obviously this is the winner. You can have one that you're looking for all the positives in, but then this one just has just overwhelmingly more to look forward to, and like it opens up the doors to new possibilities, and cuts out that stupid brunch joke that went on way too long. Oh my god, I was so happy with how they treated Flash and Cyborg in this version. It was just night and day. And I guess we can talk about Cyborg without getting into spoilers, but what did you think about Cyborg's just complete renovation?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. They really gave him purpose. Like, and Whedon's, it was very much, oh, you're a cyborg, you don't like being a cyborg, and you're mad about it, but you'll still do the good fight because you're a good person. This one, it was much more in depth. It was like, you feel this way because of this. This is traumatizing you because of this. You feel this way because of X, Y, and Z, and that's why you feel like you have to do this. But you understand that like there's more to it, and you're willing to like put that growth in, and yeah, so much better.
It's crazy that they cut so much of that character's story. It's like, I think they cut 80% of what he's actually doing in that movie. Like, he is more of a main character of that movie than anyone else. And then if you watch the original, it's like he's in there like maybe 10% of the time. And if he's there, he's just there to kind of help the characters in a situation that requires technology, and that's it. And then he has like a weird racially charged joke with the Flash or something like that they just threw in there, and I'm pretty sure that was a reshoot or something. And it's just crazy how much they reshot of this movie to replace it, or to replace the stuff that actually adds context to certain characters' motivations and what their goals are, and certain beats of their stories that actually lend to the overall story of the movie. And I'm just like, why? Why for like subpar jokes that wouldn't even make it into an American Pie movie, like just not good jokes at all.
Yeah.
I don't know, baffles me.
Yeah. Warner Brothers took a puzzle that Zack Snyder made, and he's like, here's this puzzle, what do you think of it? I don't like it. Okay, we'll just move the pieces around until you find something that you do like. And so he just moved pieces out of the place where they belong and started putting them somewhere else. And so when it came together, it was just a bunch of puzzle pieces that made something that made Whedon happy. It's like, it doesn't make sense, but like, I like this better than what I was looking at before.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work.
It's almost like you know, remember like the Solo cut, or not the Solo cut, but Solo, Star Wars Story, how that movie kind of switched directors at the time. I like Solo, A Star Wars Story. I actually enjoy that movie a lot, and I ride with that movie with Morgan or both. But man, it makes me so curious what like Lord and Miller could have done with that character. It's just like, it makes me reevaluate all these movies that in mid-production, due to executives pushing for like some sort of, I don't know, to keep up with Marvel maybe, or to, I don't know, add something or take out something that they feel that won't be received well with audiences. I want to see like all these versions of these movies, and I know it's not possible, and this is my fantasy land, but I would love to see like the fan four stick, you know?
Yeah.
Like the Trank cut or whatever, even if it's not good. I want to see the director's vision come through, and that's why this is such a treat, because it really is like, it's 4 hours of just all the stuff he wanted to put in his movie, and we got it on HBO Max for free relative to us paying it for the streaming service. But yeah,
I think that's what's happening right now. So like the MCU was so dominating for so long that in the early 2010s, it was, you know, we got what, the first Avenger movie in 2012, that changed everything. And so when you go in to pitch a movie, it's, you know, all these executives are looking and asking the question, well, how is this like the Marvel movies? And how is it going to make us that kind of money? And so that dominated. I mean, you saw it in like so many films. Like, that's why Fast and Furious is still a thing, you know? It's because it's like they found out how to do it similar to how Marvel did it. It's like, yeah, here's our fan base. It makes a lot of money. Add The Rock and make these quips at X, Y, and Z times.
yeah,
Have action at X, Y, and Z times, and then come together on something wholesome at the end. It's like, that's what they did for so long. And like, that didn't even change for the Avengers until Infinity War. Like they had the same formula up until then, and then they were like, snap, half of them are gone now. And so now we're seeing them advance beyond that formula, and now we're seeing other movies advance beyond that formula because they're realizing, oh, we can't force this from people. We have to let them make their own movie, and that's what's going to sell because they have their own independent fan bases. Instead of trying to get Marvel's fan base over, like really focus on your fan base.
yeah.
And so I'm hopeful for the next 10 years of movies. But man, the last 10 years was definitely difficult to get through because of Marvel movies.
Yeah. I love the Marvel movies, you know, and I love the work they put in. But, you know, when it comes to the actual stories that I kind of grew up with in terms of the comic books, and maybe you can agree with me, but I feel like DC has always just been consistent. Even if, you know, comics are kind of dwindling and the fans behind comics are kind of dwindling as well, it's just the stories always connected with me a little bit more besides Spider-Man, but like Batman and Superman and just the stuff they did with Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and like you mentioned before, Swamp Thing, Alan Moore's run, all of those have always just had like, I don't know, they always kind of went in darker areas. And it's so weird that it took them so long to get this kind of going, because they're kind of tripping and falling and then putting all this pressure on Zack to be like, hey, we need to make this thing. But they didn't give him enough room to do it in his own way. And it's just like, it's so destructive. It's such a weird approach to making movies where they're like, we need to catch up, but we're not going to let you do it the way that you want to do it. We're going to, like, then why did you hire a director with a vision to make a movie? Like, what is the point of it hiring a director who has an idea of how they want to set up a universe and not letting them do it? Not giving them the resources to do it. It's just baffling. And I know that mid-production something tragic happened to him, so there's a actual reason behind this. But I just feel like having Whedon come in and say, like, we need more jokes, we need more levity, we need it to be as energetic as Marvel movies. We need you to bump up the saturation to like 11, and just there. Now we have competition with Marvel, and it's such a, I don't know. It's just no spirit at all. It's kind of hollow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Zack Snyder got put in a weird spot because he got hired for Man of Steel before all these Marvel movies started making an impact. So like he was making Man of Steel after Dark Knight. So like he was still, like they were still there in that mindset. And then Man of Steel comes out, but then Avengers comes out and they're like, this one makes much more money doing it this way. And then he was like, and then he put out Batman v Superman in the same sort of tone. They're like, this one didn't make this money. It didn't make Marvel money. So what are we doing about that?
Right.
And so honestly, I think Warner Brothers took advantage of the situation, try to make it a cash boat. Didn't go well for them. I think they learned their lesson.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, they've said it over the past couple of years. Now they're just going to make movies if there's a good script behind it and like there's a good vision behind it. Like that's their goal now.
Right. And thank God, like
yeah.
I want more movies like Joker. Even if I don't completely love Joker as much as I thought I did the first time, I had some like ideas of like what it would be, and I don't know. I think over time I've liked it less. But I like that it's just completely what Todd Phillips like sought out to do, and it got rewards up the yin yang, so it doesn't need my approval or anything like that, because the world has spoken, and it's just like I love that. I love that it felt completely unique, and I like where Matt Reeves is going to be taking the Batman. I don't know if you've heard about the rumors about production of that movie, but it's just crazy, and I don't want to believe any of it. But I really hope that this movie is good, and I hope that this direction is something that they kind of follow through with, by giving directions full reign of what their property is, and just going full ahead and saying, we don't have to be tied to any universe, but if we do, let Zack kind of do his thing. And I hope that this, opens up the discussion to, a Snyder verse, whatever people are campaigning for right now, because I do want to see these things happen. It leaves it open-ended enough for me to be like, okay, I kind of want to see a sequel.
Yeah.
Maybe a Superman sequel, please. We've been waiting since 2013. Like, I would love to see where Clark's story kind of goes after this. And I guess we need to go back to talking about the movie. But I think we said everything non-spoilery that we want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess spoilers from here on out. Right? We're good?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going straight spoilers. Like I'm talking about every point of this movie. Like, if you don't want to hear it, get out.
Get the hell out of here. All right. So, Clark and the nightmare sequence. Let's just go right off the bat with We Live in a Society, okay? Let's just talk about that sequence. I know it happens at the very end, but there's a sting in the epilogue where we are seeing a post-apocalyptic world that obviously a darker version of Superman has taken over, and we kind of follow up on the sequence that we see, the nightmare sequence as they call it, in Batman v Superman. We kind of see that extended, and we get Jared Leto's Joker returning, we get Mara, and we get a CGI Flash because they get Ezra Miller to return for reshoots, and who else?
Deathstroke.
Right. So we get a sequence. They're all teamed up together. We don't know why. what do you think? What do you think's going on? And I'm pretty sure it has something to do with Lois. Lois is the key.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
She died. That's what happened.
Right.
Lois died, and it's Batman's fault. And
I
yeah, I mean, so okay, so in order to understand like this end, you have to like understand what's going on in the movie. So this whole movie is set up about self-sacrifice. Like everything in this movie is about sacrifice. You open the movie, it's the end of Batman v Superman, where Superman has just sacrificed himself and he's screaming, and it's like it's making waves, like things are changing in the world. The bell has been rung. He's the bell, and so it's like it's announcing he's the bell. He's announcing that he's dead, and like Earth's open. Like they flipped that close sign. They're open now.
Yeah.
And that was the first big sacrifice. And then, you know, we go to Themyscira and there's more sacrifice. It's like all those Amazons are fighting, sacrificing themselves to protect this mother box because they know how important it is. And then throughout the movie, it's just like eventually you get to Cyborg and how his dad sacrificed himself to, you know, simply just to put off a radiation thing so they know where to find it. Like for like a small it was so important, and he sacrificed himself for it.
Yeah.
And to Cyborg saying, I'm going to sacrifice myself to split these things when they're unionized. I know what it'll do to me. I know what the possibility is. I know I might die, but like I can do it. I'll sacrifice myself for it. And so you get all the way to the end and you're seeing this nightmare sequence that Batfleck is having in his dreams, and he's arguing with the Joker, and the Joker saying, how many people have died because you wouldn't?
Yeah.
And in how many universes because you wouldn't do it because you were too stubborn to die? And so that's what makes me think that Batman is what led to Lois dying.
Right.
Because he's Joker is clearly talking about the fact that, you know, he had a past Robin that died that he killed, and then so many other people in different like they're talking about how they've traveled the multiverses now, and like those people have died because of him. And so it stands to reason that Lois died because of something that Batman did, and that's why him and Superman are at such quarrels. And there was even an earlier scene where, you know, Superman's holding a skeleton,
Right.
and
Dark
Darkseid, Darkseid like walks up behind him and he's like, "You're with me now.
Yeah.
This was their fault. You're with me now."
Gang initiation.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't. It's implied that he didn't do it, right? It's not like Superman heat visioned her, because that's what I was thinking. Maybe they're trying to connect that possibly Superman did it on accident and then it's Batman's fault because of it, or I don't know, because
It could be.
I thought they were trying to tie a connection to Batman v Superman, because I recently watched the Ultimate Edition where he's like charring bodies with his heat vision, and like I don't know, I thought maybe that's implied, but then he was like, Batman, it's your fault. I'm like, how would Batman even know how to set that up so that Superman heat visions Lois? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that's the thing. It opens up these doors, these possibilities, and opens up discussion, which is really exciting. I did feel that the epilogue was kind of like a post-credit scenes. It didn't need to be part of the movie. I felt like when the movie ended before that would have been perfect. So it was weird that it kept going, but that's just a minor thing. But yeah, I completely agree. Like I like the direction they're going, and yeah, I feel like you know more about the context behind it than I do. But yeah, it's kind of implied that Darkseid is kind of like, what do you call it? He is, do you know what I'm talking about? He's not interning Superman, but he's kind of like,
yeah, and it feels like almost like a mind control situation, almost like he's been able to weaken his mind so that he can take advantage of him in this emotional state to convince him that, you know, what he needs to do in order to like restore balance. Almost like he was able to use that loss from Superman to convince him to join his side.
Right.
And like for, you know, and it would take a lot for Superman to like understand what he wanted to do and like his vision. But yeah, and then they, you know, there's the whole anti-life equation that gets introduced that
Mhm.
you know, could also be playing a part. And like, there's just so much that was added here that open, like when he said it was open ended, you know, it's not like, oh, it's open ended, it could lead into a second movie. No, this is like open ended, like it could lead into like 5 different movies to explain like 5 different things that are happening all at the same time that contribute to this one greater conspiracy from Dark Side. Like
Yeah.
it, he really expanded upon it.
It's not like at the end of BVS where, you know, the dirt rises and where it's like, something
Right.
happened. It's like, no, this is a completely different story that kind of has a chain reaction from whatever events happen in these, you know, potential sequels. Because it's obviously setting up something that, you know, wouldn't happen in the very next movie. I hope not. But it would be, you know, some movies probably like 10 years in the future or whatever. But yeah, that was, I kind of want to get that out of the way because that's kind of how the movie ends. But that was something I felt kind of iffy about because of its placement in the movie. But I felt that as sort of a stinger or a tease, it felt like kind of an introduction to Thanos. You'd kind of see little clips of Thanos in
Hmm.
Marvel movies, and so you wouldn't really get a full idea of what the next movie is going to be. But you have an idea that there's this looming presence, or there's something else that, you know, building up to it. And I think that's great that Snyder was able to pull that off. How did you feel about Jared Leto coming back as the Joker in that one scene?
Oh, he crushed it.
I think he
Oh,
did way better. I think he did way
oh my
better.
gosh. Wow. It's amazing what like time will do for a character. Like, I know he had like 5 minutes in Suicide Squad 2,
Yeah.
but and he had like 5 minutes here. But like, those 5 minutes were very curated by other things happening
Mhm.
in the scenes, and like everything, like it was all, he was like a side character in those scenes. It's like, oh, here's the Joker. This one, it's very much he is driving this performance. He's driving this conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
he
pushing buttons.
he's right. He's the reason why that scene exists. And so, like, when you give that kind of time and effort into a character, you can really see what he can do with it.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it was awesome. Like, that's probably one of my favorite on-screen Batman Joker interactions.
Did it
And
work?
this is like including Christian Bale, Heath Ledger. Like, this was more intense. This was, I know you on a personal level, Bruce.
Mm.
Um, and I know everything that you've done. I know everything that you haven't done. And I understand you to a point that you don't even quite understand yourself. And I'm just going to make jokes about it because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Um, and then even Batman bouncing off of him saying, right back at you, to
Mm.
where you know, he got Joker to almost break and go mental for a second. Like, you saw it change in his face, and like even down to like his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, he was making that connection. Like, I could go off and kill you right now,
Yeah.
but I'm not, because I also understand the levity of the situation. You almost got me, but like, just knowing that there's so much background between those two characters just from that one scene, I thought was just huge.
Yeah. And I think that's what they're doing. They're kind of setting up the pieces to be like, there is a story between this conversation, you know, that they're having, and it's kind of that standard conversation you expect between Batman and Joker. Is like, you need me, I need you, but this is more of like, not, this isn't that kind of mental like, I need you, you need me because I need something to be my polar opposite. This was more like, I would kill you in this world that we exist in, but we literally need each other because each of us has a piece of information that the other needs, and you know, we have to work together because we're forced in this scenario.
Hmm.
Because we know that this is a Batman that's way off his rocker. He's pretty open to killing because if this takes place in the nightmare sequence, he's using guns. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, he would have off Joker a while ago, but there's something that the Joker has that he needs, and that's what I'm curious of. What is that? What are they setting up? And Jared Leto's Joker for me has always felt like a weird imitation of Heath Ledger's Joker, which will always be my favorite. And like, I love that performance and I love that movie. It'll be the gold standard for as long as I live. But yeah, I think Jared Leto kind of took it back. He dialed it back a little bit. He made it less. I don't even know how to describe his performance in Suicide Squad, but he dialed it down so much so that it felt a little bit more believable. There was some of his little laugh coming through that I wasn't like a big fan of, but these are like things that if you're trying to find reasons to not like the performance, you'll find them. So I was just looking at it as something detached and like him returning to a role that would probably be hard for any actor to return to if they know how much people don't like it. So I was like, yeah, this is good, and I would love to see this story kind of evolve between these two. And I liked his approach, and he really reminded me of, in terms of his design. Do you remember the Batman cartoon series? Not the animated
Like the animated series?
the one that would show up on 4Kids. I don't know if we grew up around that same time. But it was the Batman the Animated Series by Bruce Timm, but not that one. The one that came after the Batman. And so there was
Oh, yeah.
yeah. He kind of had like the long sleeves and the long hair. That design, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I like that. But some people didn't like it online, but I was like, I kind of like it because I grew up with that cartoon show. So about that, I really dug, and I'm so glad they got rid of the dumb tattoos. I'm so glad.
Yeah, tattoos were a lot.
Oh my, yeah, I hated the original design, but I was willing to forgive it if the performance was good. The performance wasn't great in Suicide Squad, so didn't forgive it. But now this is like a design I can totally get behind, and I'm really excited for just seeing the story behind how these different characters kind of got together and they had to join forces to defeat possibly Superman. I want to see how that happens. So,
and like Deathstroke is there, but like at the end of the movie, it's also like Deathstroke's about to go fight Batman.
Yeah.
Because now he knows he's Bruce Wayne, but now they're working together. So like, there's that whole stint also of that period of like information that we don't have, but we really want. It's like, one, how did that fight go down? Because that was intense. Two, how did they like recover from it to a point where now they're working together? And then three, like, how much money was involved? That's going to be that's going to be insane. Like, they both got a lot of money.
That'd be funny if
like
he's
those
just paying them.
Right, it's just like money from each side. They could just throw at anything. Like, that tech's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Maybe Bruce Wayne is just like, yeah, I can pay these guys to like help me during the apocalypse. I assume that money isn't even a thing during that time, but yeah, he'd be the guy. But yeah, so I think those were, and you're talking about the Lex Luthor scene in Deathstroke, right? That leads directly into the nightmare sequence. So I think they shot that with Zack before Zack had to leave, right? Because that was supposed to lead to Ben Affleck's The Batman, right?
Right.
And so Deathstroke was going to be a prominent like villain in that movie, and then Ben Affleck, said "see you later," and then peaced out. And then Matt Reeves came in. So I think that was original. When I watched it, I was like, is this a reshoot? Like, I couldn't tell. But now that I think back on the history of this movie, which is crazy, and I hope they do a documentary on the making of the Snyder Cut, because that is going to be crazy. But it just like makes me curious, like how much of this was actually reshot, and how much of Whedon's did Zack keep in? Because I wanted to actually dial it back to kind of the core part of the movie, not the epilogue. But some of those scenes, I think they were from Whedon's cut, right? And maybe I'm mistaken, but some of the sequences with Aquaman, I feel like were in the Whedon cut, right? One specifically, the one where he says, when Aquaman says to Batman out loud, and this happens twice, and this is me completely going off tangent, but when he's like, dresses like a bat, you're crazy, Bruce Wayne, I'm just like, shut the fuck up, man. These people are like Scandinavian, but like, I don't know, someone probably took English class once, they know. So I don't know, things like that. I was like, I swear that's from the Whedon cut in the Snyder cut. So I'm like, how much of, yeah, like I'm curious. I need to see some behind the scenes of like how this production works.
Yeah.
It's so curious.
I don't know if that was like something that Whedon brought in as much as kept from the original shoots.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where those scenes overlap. I assume that like none of Whedon's extra scenes that he shot made it in.
Yeah.
Like this is purely Snyder's stuff. But yeah, honestly, I love that they just made Aquaman Jason Momoa. Like they're like, oh yeah, no, you're not playing Aquaman. You're just Jason Momoa. We're just calling you Aquaman for this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can get down with that. Aquaman's very much Superman, but for water. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird to have two of that same character on screen. So like the fact that they deviated from that and they kind of made their own Aquaman character. Very big fan of that. Like he's never been interesting on screen.
Well, he's
like
barely been on screen, right?
Yeah, he was in like Smallville.
Yeah.
And even in like some of the animated series, it's hard for him to have a presence because I mean he's just Superman, but for the ocean.
Yeah. Family Guy. That's pretty much it. Yeah. I like the character. I love the new 52 version of Aquaman. So I was a little bit skeptical when they cast Jason Momoa, but then seeing the vision kind of unfold and seeing him in these movies, I really like the casting. And I like how they completely revamped it. And so that's the thing about Snyder is that at first you're like, what is going on with these casting decisions? Because you're like Gal Gadot, and you're like, okay, that girl from Fast and Furious who could barely act. In the right hands, with the right director and with the right screenplay, she can do pretty good. I like her. She's still not the strongest actress. There are some lines in this movie where I'm like, yeah, you want to try that again? That exposition reading where she's reading that long story, I could feel her reading the script that entire time. I was just like, yeah, not the best. But
honestly, yeah, soothing voice. I don't care if you're reading from a script. If like someone hands you a napkin with some sort of prologue on it, like just read it, and I'm just gonna melt away in my chair over here.
She was on Audible, maybe.
Like honestly, yeah, like yeah, I don't think she has like the best dialogue voice yet for those narrative moments. Yeah. I think her carrying a performance, like I don't know, I haven't seen her do it solo yet. Like it's always required some support from other cast members, but I think she has a lot of potential. But one thing that she really carries is a presence. Like even though she doesn't have the acting skills yet or the narration skills, she has a presence on screen that you can't like teach it or anything. It's just like she's in a room, everyone knows that she's in a room, and part of your vision's always going to be on her.
Yeah, and I think that's what Zack's casting has kind of centered around, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it's like I feel like a lot of his actors for the Justice League are kind of more based around charisma, and I'd say the strongest actor would probably be Ben Affleck, and maybe Henry Cavill a close second. But a lot of them are more charisma actors, right? They're not the strongest. They're not pining for any Oscars anytime soon. But they are really fun to watch. They are big characters, and you see them and they stand out. Like Jason Momoa, like you could pin him in a lineup easily. But he fits that character, and so does Gal Gadot. She has this kind of warm presence, and she's tall, she's a model, so she kind of gives off the Wonder Woman feel, and she's obviously she's beautiful and stuff, so she fits that role. But yeah, she gives off a really strong presence, and in the Wonder Woman movie, she's excellent. And so a lot of his casting choices over time kind of grew on me, and then revisiting BVS. I remember how I felt going in. I was like, Ben Affleck as Batman? Well, I guess we'll see. Watched it, and I was like, how did I not see this? Like, it's perfect. It's perfect. And it's just like, he has really interesting casting choices, but then you watch it, and you're like, oh, I totally see what he was trying to do. So I don't think I have any complaints there. It's just, yeah, he doesn't pick the obvious choice, and that's what I really respect about him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's one thing any of his movies have done. It's always been like, here are these people that you haven't really seen in any other movie of this caliber, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, I like them. Yeah, and then he proves it to you.
Yeah, and Ray Fisher, man, So I guess we can talk more about Cyborg in depth. But you mentioned how his father sacrificed himself. Now that was a big deviation from the original, because I think at the end of Whedon's cut, they're like playing with like a Rubik's cube, or they're playing with like a mother box or something, and then like he gets a new like whatever, like an Iron Man suit, and that's kind of what they lead off in the end. But they're together. He's still alive. Silas Stone is still alive in that cut. This one, dead. He gets chopped up to bits, and he's doing this to superheat a mother box so that they can track it from like across the globe. And that was a really good change that needed to happen. And so many of the beats that they removed from Ray Fisher's storyline as Cyborg, it's insane. Why, right? Like,
Yep.
I was baffled, and my friends were just like, "What the hell? This wasn't." And we kept saying that throughout the movie. We're like, "This isn't in it. This isn't in it." And it would have been a long ass laundry list of just things that we have no idea why they would cut this. So, yeah, just overall, man, Flash and Cyborg were just shafted, in my opinion. So,
yeah, absolutely, and it really just goes to show how important. I know we all hate them, but how important origin movies are.
yeah,
Like, even though for the most part they are not good, because like we get it, like we know the origin story, but having the time to like really understand the characters is really important when you do these bigger movies. Like if you're doing a team up movie, you really want to understand where a character's been for a certain amount of time.
yeah,
And I think the Avengers did it well, where they introduced all their important characters, and then even in the Avengers, they're like, "Oh, we're introducing more characters," and then you'll see them grow. And this one, it was, "Oh, Superman. You kind of know Batman. You saw him a little bit, and then you don't really know Wonder Woman at this point." And then, here's Flash and Cyborg. They're here.
yeah,
And when Whedon made the choice to make all those cuts narratively, I don't think he understood how integral like those characters needed to be in order to carry what the ending needed to be. Like you needed to understand some sort of path from those characters in order to really drive home what they wanted to end with. Um, and which was also cut down. Ending was significantly cut down with how that fight with Steppenwolf went. And so,
yeah. We'll get there.
yeah.
Jeez.
And so having that extra time with Cyborg and Flash was really important. Really seeing how Cyborg went through the process of having his whole future ahead of him, like being the smartest guy in class, the top football player, whole future ahead of him, having his number one fan taken away from his mom, and then losing his entire future, and having to be with his dad, who to this point he thought just didn't have a care in the world for him. He was just Cyborg was like his character felt backseated to his dad, and so then seeing his dad go through so much just to save his life, and then have Vic feel ungrateful, like, no, you didn't bring me back, you made me something else. And having that whole turmoil come out on screen, and then having that conversation with Wonder Woman, where they're in the street, and it's like, I'm a monster, like I don't need anyone, I'm solo, like this is my life now. Wonder Woman's like, no, I get it, like we can be here for you. And then seeing him progress through the state of depression that he was in into more of an understanding of how he could now have a new purpose, into seeing that purpose through and acceptance in the end. Like you saw his whole story within this movie, and I thought that was done really, really well.
Yeah, they the fact that they cut out the beat with him helping the waitress out, just that little added detail, what was it, like 30 seconds to a minute best? Just that little thing to say, like, he has the power to destroy the world if he needs to. And we get to see how things work in his brain. He's still his physical body, whatever, but he's able to tap into technology around the world. He could nuke a country if he wanted, just like that. And they establish that really well. But then they show right after that no, he doesn't care about the power that he has, but he knows that with his powers he can help those that need it. And that's the thing that was great, that they cut out, removed completely. And they removed the fact that, well, we understood that he was a football player or whatever in the original, but this one, we see him play football. We see what he had to lose to get there. We see him with his mom, like you said. And it's just all these little things that wouldn't take that much. And, like, they just didn't put it in there. It's wild. It's wild. And then we can get into the Flash as well, because they did the same thing to his character. But yeah, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And it just goes to show that, like I said earlier, Whedon just didn't understand what was trying to be done with these characters. Like, I feel like Whedon saw this movie and he was like, oh, what are you doing? Is this an origin story, or is this a team up movie? We just need one or the other. We can't do both. Yeah. Like, so we'll just do a team up movie, because that's what made me money with Avengers. But the fact that you can still put that groundwork in and that foundation in a team up movie like this to really establish characters and have us, help us understand fully of what the weight is of having a character like this in it is just really great.
I think that was, in a way, Whedon being like, I tried that with Age of Ultron. I tried to do that with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I couldn't do it. So let's just cut all that stuff out and let's just do it my way. People like jokes. People like humor. People like Flash falling on Wonder Woman's boobs. People like that, right? No, people don't want that. People want people to take the time to create character. And that's the thing. It's 4 hours, but you get paid off so well. There is an arc for every single character. Well, almost every single character. Wonder Woman, not really. But Batman, his state of mind has changed by the beginning of the movie. And by the end, he finally gets that closure of, bringing Superman back, being able to redeem himself. Superman gets to come back and, face a world that at the time, before he sacrificed himself, wasn't accepting of him. But now he is basically worshipped, but he's remembered as this person that sacrificed and put his life on the line. It's like all these characters come full circle, which leads into the Flash, who has one of the best scenes in the movie, and we won't get there because that's the Steppenwolf fight and etc. But that little added scene with him and Kiersey Clemens, and he's applying for the job, and there's a car crash, and she's in the car, and then it's all in slow-mo. That scene is really good. Besides the music choice, I thought that was a little odd, but that's just me. Yeah, we can talk about the music later too. But that scene in particular just shows so much about the Flash. It gave him so much more character than that stupid brunch exchange ever did. And it was so weird that they cut that out as well. It was slow-mo. Maybe that's why Joss was like, no, we're not going to do that in my cut. But it's just odd that so much character revelations and like so much we learn about who they are as people was cut out, and we just get the beats that are necessary for the story. And I think that sucks, because I would much rather take a 4-hour movie that goes in depth with characters than a hodgepodge 2-hour movie that just focuses on, we get bad guy, we beat him up, and we go home and kiss our ladies goodnight. It's like, I don't want that. I want something with story. I want something with character, and I'll take that, even if it's hard to sit through sometimes. But yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, and I think that scene was really smart, and the slow-mo choice I think was good. Like, people love slow-mo scenes. Like, that's why people were so hype about Evan Peters coming back in WandaVision, because they fell in love with that character because of his slow-mo scenes. And like, Joss Whedon's Quicksilver didn't, from what I can remember, it didn't really get.
But
Yeah,
it's
he didn't
something.
really. They didn't really focus on that any. It was just like, yeah, he's really fast.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, people love slow mo scenes, and they love it when someone is like participating at regular speed within a slow mo scene.
Yeah.
And so, introducing those kinds of scenes, I think, was really, really great. And like putting emphasis on it. Like, this is his power. But then it also showed two sides of Flash that I think weren't really prominent, but like I think I don't know. I think it really demonstrated well how socially awkward he was. Like he's an awkward guy, and even when time is standing still, he doesn't quite know how to act. Like he's still figuring it out, like who he is. And so like when he's there, he's like brushes her hair, and it's like awkward, dude. No, back off. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
And then you see him grab a hot dog, which at the time it's like you don't know what that's for. But I think that shows how quick his brain can be, because while he was there focusing on saving Iris, like he was in that moment, he was also thinking about the moment that he was just in, like what he needs to do.
Yeah.
So he grabbed the hot dog, puts it in his pocket, catches the girl, and then zips back into the store and is like feeding the dogs with a hot dog. And it's like, wow, he just got a job from grabbing a hot dog. And it's like that he turned that whole conversation around. And so I think it showed how quick his brain can think. It's not just his speed, like he's really smart. You don't need a bunch of computer screens in the background now just to try to explain that he's like this really smart guy. He's really quick-witted, and he's really quick on his feet.
Yeah.
You know.
Literally.
Yeah. And he doesn't understand himself yet. So like typically in socially awkward situations, it's because you don't know how you are supposed to interact in a certain situations. And he's still figuring out like who he is. And so interacting in those instances to him is still different and weird. And so it's like he took time to like sit there and like look at her, and like feel it. It's like, yeah, he felt this connection and he didn't know what to do with it. And so it's really setting up this groundwork for what will be in the next Flash movie. Is like this whole coming to understand himself and like what he needs from Iris and like a partner, and like how that interaction is going to be. But having him be awkward in that moment, I felt was smart, even though it made me feel weird. Just him like,
it was a little creepy.
It was really creepy. He like went up and like brushed her hair. It's like, ooh, no, don't do that. But it just goes to
anyone saw that, but no,
right, and it goes to show, just like he's still at an immature level in his growth period, and so he still has like a lot of room to grow and like develop there. But like, it's just small things like that Snyder puts in to really show the value of acknowledging where they're at in their growth. Really makes an impact for the story.
Yeah. And let's talk about the father. That was a part of the movie originally. He goes and he draws the face on the guy who's being an asshole or whatever. That's cut out completely. And we get more interaction between him and him getting the job and etc. and his dad celebrating, and that comes full circle at the end. But that relationship and how that actually ties into the finale, which we'll talk about later, it's just so good. The payoff, the setup and the payoff, it's just way better, miles better than what they tried to do in the original. And just the Flash, kind of just talking about his character before we, I think if there's anything else you want to talk about, but before we get into the Steppenwolf part, the finale, where a lot of things happen. But the Flash as a character, for me, has always been kind of a miscast for Ezra Miller. I've always felt like Ezra Miller was sort of an actor that works in very specific roles. And I guess that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that it takes me a while to warm up to characters. But seeing the character in the hands of the person who cast that character, it's miles better than Whedon's version of how he wanted to iterate that character. Just some fast-talking, quippy, just like, I don't know, ADHD kind of, character, this type, not necessarily being faithful to someone who actually has ADHD, but what Whedon thought, that's how I'll do it. It just didn't work. It just felt like he was just distracted all the time, and that's not a bad thing if you do it right, but this one felt like his character, like you said, was tied to him being a little bit awkward, being unsure of himself, and literally his mind is a reflection of his abilities. It's just all over the place, but in the end he has to like come back to what he needs to focus on, which is getting the job. And I think that was just such a great little way to establish his character. And I think I'll just stop talking about that scene in particular. But yeah, the Flash throughout the movie, he gets these little beats with like Cyborg in the cemetery. This time it's not just those two, but they're actually talking about it, about what's going on. And we get that little scene between Aquaman and Wonder Woman where they're like, hey, our people hate each other, but we're good. And so little things that take very little time, just establishing these characters and how they actually care for each other in some way, even though they don't know each other. And then also the scene with Aquaman talking about Cyborg in the original version, he was like, I don't trust you, you bad machine guy, who knows who you could be working for. Cut out, thank God. And instead we get a sympathetic Aquaman. I get Aquaman who's like, hey, this kid just lost everyone in his life, and we're gonna ask him to fight like a demigod. Like, you're crazy. Like, let's give him some time. And that was just such a nice change, and such a nice change of pace. And then going just back to the Flash, there wasn't that him being weird with every single character for the sake of it. It was just kind of in his character to want to help out. And that scene where he's going to save people when they've captured all the scientists, that shows so much more than what they did before, when he was having that weird dialogue between Batman. He's like, what do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Do it. And then Batman's like, just one at a time, whatever. That whole thing is gone. That exchange is gone. And he's just going in there and he's saving people, getting them outside. And it's just like, it makes you just baffled of what was going on behind the decision making of editing this movie together. So yeah, it's weird how much has changed, but yeah, I can't wait to see the behind the scenes of how they did this and put this movie together. But yeah, it's hard to dance around the Flash when it comes to one particular scene, which comes at the end of the movie. And Jacob, please tell me what you thought of the end of the movie.
Gosh, so they all died. So big spoiler alert, they all died at the end. So all but Flash. Flash was the only one that survived. But essentially they fail the first time because Flash gets hit while he's revving up, trying to create the charge needed to separate the mother boxes. He gets hit and he falls and he stumbles, and because of that, because he fell, everyone died. And as soon as it happened, he saw it and he jumped into the Speed Force right away. And I mean, you saw it happen. He turned back time, and it was how they did it was awesome. It wasn't like him like running around the Earth to like reverse its rotation like they would normally do with Superman. Like, I'm so glad they didn't do something like that. Like, you really saw him go into the Speed Force and you saw everything come back. So while he's running forward, everything else is moving backwards, which I thought was done visually really well.
Yeah, and the ground is literally materializing around his feet as he's traveling through. Yeah, sorry, I'll let you.
And it was awesome. And all the way up to the point where he got to where he needed to be at a speed to where he needed to be in order to successfully pull off what they needed to pull apart the mother boxes to save the day. But it was really, really awesome. It was something that he was scared to do, but knew he had to do. I think he made a remark on it. It was like, we're breaking the first rule, or like the most important rule. In doing that, and seeing his progression of how he used his powers up to that point, I think was really important. Like you were saying, like even in the sewers where he was getting people out, he was active in doing that, but he was like trying to figure out how to do it the right way. And then they're walking up the stairs. The Cyborg's like, I got it. Just go make sure they get out. He got out there and he was bringing everyone out, make sure everyone was safe. But even in that point, there was a moment where like part of the building fell and he was like trying to save all the rocks. Even then he made a mistake. Um, and I think it just goes to show how every time he used his powers, it was him overthinking and not just like accepting what he could do.
Yeah.
But at the end, it was, I'm breaking the rule. I'm reversing time. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just doing it. And that's what we saw. And that's what he did. And it saved the day. Like he was the reason why everyone was able to successfully pull off what they needed to do. And just that display of power that he possesses. I know a lot of people like joke around. He's like, he's fast. Like, yeah, but it's more like what he can do with speed is heavier in this world than what we can fully like wrap our heads around in just a movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that he found a scene to display like a portion of that was really important and really well done.
Yeah. It's the coolest display of the use of the Speed Force that I've ever seen on screen. I mean, it had to be, because this is, the cinematic version of that. And the way that they set up, he's talking to his father while he's doing that. And, like he says, he's going to break the first rule. And it all kind of ties back to, that conversation he had with his dad. And also, it was sort of set up because we see time reversed a little bit when they're reviving Superman. We see the mother box kind of lift up for that brief second, and he's able to make contact and etc. charge the cube. So that was something that they changed in the original as well, where he had to like time it perfectly to do it and whatever. That's all gone, and now it's just that set up that he reversed time, and that's why we see the cube lift and we see the photo lift and etc. It's like, man, this is what they were leaving out. It's the best scene that I have seen from DC in a really, like, I haven't felt this excited about a scene from DC since probably, I don't know, The Dark Knight, that Joker interrogate, like completely different things, but just that feeling of like, oh my god, I'm getting an actual emotional reaction out of a comic book movie came from that scene where I was just like, this is so cool. And yeah, and it ties to the story and it lends to his character and it makes that character so much more fulfilling. And I don't like Ezra Miller that much, okay? I'll just be very honest. I don't think he's my favorite actor. Can't stand his voice, but in this movie, I liked him. I would want to see more of him, and I'm excited for what Andy Muschietti can do with this movie. It's weird that they knocked out Cyborg from that film. Am I correct in that, or is he still in it?
I think there's room to bring him back, but I don't think he will. I think the issue is Walter Hamada and Ray Fisher don't get along.
Yeah.
They got to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah. I think burn that bridge, and I want to know why. I want to know exactly what they did. But yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I would love to talk about that some other time, but yeah, in terms of just the story and the characters, we get Superman. He returns. He returns in very different fashion than he did in the original cut. Do you like this version better? Because I do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is so much better. Like, he wasn't in it much, which is, fine for what they were doing with this movie. Like, he didn't need to be in there because we needed to really focus on Cyborg and Flash, which is something that, I felt like Joss was like, we need more Superman. No, we just need him to come in and do X, Y, and Z. Will you, like, the vision of this was to set Superman up to do stuff in future Justice League movies. But like seeing him come back in this movie and using the recovery suit, just, just like, those fine details.
I don't need the mullet. It'd be cool, but I don't need it.
Yeah. But yeah, those fine details I feel like hit a lot harder in this one. And even the scene where he came back in the fight against Steppenwolf, and having those throwbacks to Man of Steel and how those fights looked, where it really zoomed in on like the over his shoulder,
Yeah.
and he's crashing down on Steppenwolf and just displaying his power there. And this is like post death power, so this isn't even all of it, fam. Like this dude's got so much more in the bank that he's just waiting on.
Yeah.
But seeing that was a lot better in this one, much more impactful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually not just like, oh, Superman's here. Well, I gotta go on my lunch break, so I'll be back when Superman's. They're actually, it's gratuitous how Steppenwolf goes out, but it's like I loved it. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of gave into the world of Zack Snyder, the hyper violent world, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's R-rated, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all had something to do. They did combos, and then boom, we see the big portal open up. We see Darkseid, and we see them face each other, and that was just amazing. It was so cool. But yeah, we haven't even talked about Steppenwolf, and I don't know if there was something else you wanted to talk about, so I'll leave it back to you.
Oh yeah, no, I liked what you said about the combos, because I thought that was huge. Something that was really missing from the first one was just how well people bounced off of each other with their combat. But like seeing Aquaman just like smash his trident into the ground to create that shockwave, and then having Wonder Woman like bounce off of that with her thing, and just like seeing that force explosion from like what they combined can do, it's just scary, man. Yeah. Absolutely terrifying what they're able to produce, and having that tease at the end where they're staring down Darkseid, and Darkseid's like, maybe not now. I gotta do some prep. Just seeing that tease is just hard to know that right now there's nothing planned after that, because it was so satisfying.
It's set up perfectly though. It's kind of like, I've heard some people say Darkseid doesn't really have a character in this movie. Well, neither did Thanos up till Infinity, right? Like he was sort of just this guy in the chair, and that's literally what Darkseid is now. And I'm sure in the hands of who is it again? The director who's making the New Gods. I'm sure that they'll flesh out his character in that film. So we don't really need him to have a character. He just needs to be this imposing presence, and we need to know that he's pulling the strings. And so that's what I really liked about that, and I liked how they set it up. Steppenwolf, completely different character, completely different design. Not only that though, yeah, he had motivation. He had some reason behind what he was doing. He wasn't just a mama's boy. He was kind of like, I need to appease my master. I need to earn my graces again. And that was such a huge, and just that little thing just helped his character a lot more. He's not going to be any Thanos. It's going to be hard to compete with him, and everyone's going to compare him because they're big monsters, but he had a little bit more to do, and he actually had some I guess you could say some more agency in this, and he was a lot scarier in this one. And I have no idea why, because he basically did the same things, but he seemed scarier. He seemed more threatening.
Yeah, he definitely seemed a lot scarier. Like having him there on the, like you saw it with the Amazons and the Atlanteans, they're all like, oh, this dude's bad news. And like, if you have people of that caliber showing that kind of fear towards what's going on, it's bad. But how I think they did something to his voice. It made it sound better. And then they also kind of made him cuter under the helmet. That's really weird to say. I saw someone on Twitter that commented on too. I was like, yeah, he definitely appeared cuter in this under all of the armor. Like someone like had the armor but had like a little kitten's face with a pouty face under it. I was like, yeah, that fits perfectly. Yeah, he's like much more adorable under all the armor. But like when he's in action and like interrogating people and trying to find these mother boxes and fighting, like it's a lot more terrifying.
And those scenes that we got to see, like the Amazon, what do you call it, the relay race, basically, where they're just throwing the mother box, trying to get it as far away from Steppenwolf as possible. That scene was extended, and it was so much better. It's just all these scenes that were really short, like the Aquaman invasion or whatever, or the Atlantean invasion where he's trying to get the mother boxes. All of those things were just so much longer and so much more fulfilling as action sequences. And we also get Mera with the cool blood bending. Like, it's just all these things where I'm just like, I'm so glad we got a 4-hour version. Do I want to revisit it? Probably not anytime soon because it's a long movie, but it's something that I'll definitely want to revisit the scenes going back. But yeah, Steppenwolf definitely a lot more adorable. That's the first thing I heard someone say. Yeah, Steppenwolf's kind of cute.
Oh yeah, and then they bumped up his thighs too.
His thighs. I
Oh
didn't even
man,
notice.
he had an ass in this movie.
He had chicken legs in the original because he's just a dude. He's just a really big dude. But this one, he
Yeah,
actually got monster, and I
yeah,
was
he's like a
surprised.
force.
It was part of his head. Like I thought that was a helmet, and he was gonna take it off. And he was just gonna be bald. But I was like, oh, it's actually part of his head, and the armor
Hmm.
was so cool. Like I loved it. Originally thought he looked like Megatron from like the Transformers movies, but then I grew to like it, and I loved how he had those arrows, and he just kind of flexed and broke them in half.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, there's a reason why that design exists. It's cool. Yeah, I don't really have anything to complain about in terms of the movie. Well, I do, but all the things that were improved upon kind of outweigh any of those things, and I'm just glad that this movie exists. Is it perfect? I don't think so, but yeah. What are your kind of last thoughts on the movie overall?
Yeah, always release the ultimate cut when it comes to Snyder movies.
Yeah.
They're always better. Like, I mean, Watchmen ultimate cut better. Batman vs Superman ultimate cut better. Like,
Oh.
ma- like, don't let him make a movie that's under 3 hours. Just don't let him do it. Like, if Man of Steel had an ultimate cut, I'm sure more people would have liked that too. It would have been better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Snyder doesn't need to make movies under 3 hours long. I think he's proven that he can make movies 3 to 4 hours and have it be successful.
Yeah.
And yeah, a director's vision is important.
Yeah. I think it's just the hours in the movie. It's just for if it ever went back to theater, it wouldn't be practical to make money. 4 hours. You only have so much time in the day to actually schedule out that movie. So I'm so glad it's on HBO Max. It's a perfect place. And I do think that Zach does need to focus on getting his movies a lot more streamlined. If he wants to tell this story, he needs to find a way to cut it down. And maybe it's the slow-mo. We could joke around about how the slow-mo may take up some time, but I think just overall he needs to find a way to, put the story together in a way that can actually fit in that time.
Mhm.
If it's transferring over to streaming, then do whatever you want. Make it as long as you want to tell the story you need. But yeah, if we ever go back to theaters, I think that would be one thing that he would need to improve upon. But this movie overall, I enjoyed it a lot more. Did it have its flaws? Yeah, I didn't like the Aquaman like a cappella group that follows him around. Whatever. That was so awkward. Some music choices in the movie I didn't like. There were some scenes that dragged. Not all the scenes got their full arcs or got to be as interesting as Flash and Cyborg, but the fact that we got more context behind their characters and felt more fulfilling, and by the end of the movie you could tell where they were going and you could tell where the arc was in the movie.
Yeah.
It's just great. Oh, we didn't even talk about Martian Manhunter, but I guess we don't have to say too much about it. But yeah,
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah.
But he's not the only one. There was another superhero that made an appearance.
Was there?
Yeah, so it wasn't just Martian Manhunter who they added for an added element with the conversation with Lois, and then at the very end they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm here for the fight too. I'm Martian Manhunter, by the way."
Yeah.
So there was that, which was fine. I love Martian Manhunter. He's an awesome character. I think if he had a movie, it would be phenomenal. Like that is a character I would love to see, like a 2.5 hour movie on just like his life, his origin on Earth, and like what that experience is like throughout the ages. But also Ryan Joy was in the movie. So like bring in the Atom. Yeah, do it. That dude's awesome.
Yeah. It's weird that they're skipping Ray Palmer, but I mean he's already had his shine in like the other stuff. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. It's weird. Oh, it's not weird that they cut him out. If I had to choose things to cut out, I think it would probably start with those two, just because they want to keep the story streamlined. So I get it. But it was cool to see that they were actually setting something up for the possibility of having an Asian superhero before Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really awesome. I enjoyed that. When I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, yeah. They cast this guy and they didn't do anything with it. So I was pleased to see. I did feel that the Martian Manhunter as Martha Kent thing would have worked better if that was actually Martha Kent. That was one thing that I was like, I think that would have been a more emotionally impactful, and it would have said a lot about Martha Kent's character. But that's just a minor thing. But I would have just appreciated it if Martian Manhunter showed up at the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the fact that he's in this story. It's weird that he didn't do shit for the first two movies. He was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna let them figure it out.
Well, I think that's where we explore his story now. Is like, why was he so because he was trying to make a difference as a human, like that, and like getting to that point of where he felt like that's how he had to do it is a story within itself. And I feel like that would be awesome to explore, to where it's like he doesn't feel like I can do this as the Martian. I have to do this as a human. But then I think it'd be really cool is if we go back and we see him being characters and other like in the original Wonder Woman movie and Wonder Woman 84, if we see him as some of those characters, like I think that would be a lot of fun.
Find out he was Steve Trevor the entire time.
Right. Like he came back as Steve, like he was the witch.
The biggest problem I had with that movie, I guess it's just talking about Wonder Woman 84. It's like, why did they have to take some other guy's body? Why couldn't he just come back as Steve Trevor? I don't understand that. It was weird. But yeah, that would be cool. That's such a good idea, man. I never thought of that. And that is an interesting take on the story. It's like, when did he land on Earth? Where does the story begin, and why was he just being passive this entire time? So yeah, that's a great angle, and I didn't even think of that. I just thought he was just kind of like, hey, they'll figure it out. I just want to like watch movies at home or something. So yeah, good point, man. Yeah, overall the movie, do you think we should give it a score, or should we just give it a recommendation, or just nothing?
No, man, watch this movie.
Yeah,
like
watch it.
just watch it. Like even if you split it up in parts, like just do what you got to do to watch it. You might not like it, you might love it. Like it's going to be what it is, but this is part of history now. Like it really is.
It's game changing for directors. The fans have a voice, and this is kind of proven. The proof is in the pudding. It's like, if you yell loud enough, someone will hear, and if enough people yell, executives will be like, "Oh, money. That's what I hear." So I don't know. Maybe we will get that fan force director.
Yeah, I think we'll get some good stuff from it, like from fans giving their feedback. I think we'll also get some bad stuff from it because fans can be toxic as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah.
It's in HBO Max's ball court now.
I think they're killing it, to be honest. I think it's one of my favorite streaming services. And what's coming up next on HBO Max in terms of DC properties?
DC properties on HBO Max, I think we've got like Titans coming up soon.
Yeah.
And then we've got all the CW stuff that'll eventually land there.
Right.
Like the new Flash, the new Batwoman, Stargirl, which if you haven't seen,
no,
that's a fun show.
Is it?
It's a fun show. I'd recommend watching it. It's like one of those teen shows, but like it's not like Riverdale or those new shows where it's all about drama. It's actually got a lot of good weight and good historical DC superhero stuff in it. A lot of fun.
Is Superman and Lois on HBO Max? Because that's what I wanted to start. Because
it will be. Oh, yeah. So I think it just starts streaming on HBO, and not on HBO. It starts coming to CW, then will eventually stream on HBO Max.
Right.
Just like the other CW shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of good stuff coming up for DC.
Yeah, Green Lantern, that series apparently, or show or something like that.
Really interested to see that. They have a lot of good characters they can pull from. I think Jessica Cruz is going to be in it. She's dope.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's a lot to look forward to. I love this direction. I'm excited for where DC is going. I think this is the start of something really interesting. Yeah, strong recommendation from me. You as well?
Yeah, definitely watch it.
Yeah. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this discussion. It's how long were we talking, man? Lost track of time. But yeah, it's 4 hours to cover, so of course we'd have to talk about it for at least half that time. So yeah, man. Anything you want to plug?
Nothing yet. I've got some stuff in cooking, so we'll see where that goes. But pretty soon, keep an eye out for Penguin Plays, and we'll see how that turns out.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Jacob, for joining me in this conversation. We should, and I really think we should talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't know if you want to do episodically or if we should just talk about it all in one when the show's over. But
Yeah,
just watch the first episode and have a lot of thoughts. It's great. That's all I'll say.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for helping me set up this crap. Really appreciate it, man. All right.
Yeah, man.
All right. See you guys. And cut.